good evening, girls and boys. I thought I might, have a go at fucking around with reading and relating, things that are completely unrelated to each other. So, the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, just randomly. I haven't read the whole thing. Just bust it out to book 9. See how I go, The next thing will be slightly more fun, and the third thing will be no fun at all, okay? Alright.
Okay, so I'm just going to read the first bit of Book 9 of the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. That's the first one. Alright. Injustice is sin. When universal nature has constituted rational creatures for the sake of each other, to benefit one another, as deserved, but never to harm, anyone contravening her will is clearly guilty of sin against the oldest of the gods, because universal nature is the nature of ultimate reality to which all present existence is related. This is pretty vague. Okay. But fair enough, The dude was from back in the day, Lying, too, is a sin against the same goddess. Her name is Truth, and she is the original cause of all that is true. The conscious liar sins to the extent that his deceit causes injustice. The unconscious liar, to the extent that he is out of tune with the nature of the whole and out of order with the nature of the ordered universe against which he fights. And it is fighting when he allows himself to be carried in opposition to the truth. He has received the prompts from nature. By ignoring them, he is now incapable of distinguishing false from true. Moreover, the pursuit of pleasure as a good and the avoidance of pain as an evil constitutes sin. Someone, like that, must inevitably and frequently blame universal nature for unfair distribution as between bad men and good, since bad men are often deep in pleasures and the possessions which make for pleasure, while the good often meet with pain and the circumstances which cause pain. Further, anyone who fears pain will also at times be afraid of some future event in the world, and that is immediate sin. And a man who pursues pleasure will not hold back from injustice, an obvious sin. Those who wish to follow nature and share her mind must themselves be indifferent to those pairs of opposites to which universal nature is indifferent. She would not create these opposites if she were not indifferent either way. So anyone who is not himself indifferent to pain and pleasure, death and life, fame and obscurity, things which universal nature treats indifferently, is clearly committing a sin. By universal nature treating these things indifferently, I mean they happen impartially by cause and effect to all that comes into being and owes its being to the fulfillment of original impulse of providence. Under this impulse, Providence set out from a first premise to establish the present order of the universe. She had conceived certain principles of what was to be, and determined generative powers to create substances, transformations, and successive regeneration. Alright, so that was that bit. The next bit is this, from this book. I'm not going to mention its name, it's supposed to be unmentionable. There's a couple of versions of it. This is the slightly more bullshit version of it, as far as, I can possibly ascertain, but, I don't really think anyone's that as big a fan of H.P. Lovecraft as whoever the fuck this is, okay? So, anyway. Where are we? Alright. Stipulation of this particular book is that you're not supposed to read it out loud. And I'll probably fumble it because, sort of the syntax is a bit strange. But, I did pretty well with the meditations, though. I think this sort of, whole Halo situation is doing me some good. Okay. So, I'm not gonna read the title of the chapter. Let's just call it 9-2, alright? Need the halo up for this one. In the distant lands to the east, beyond great mountains that strive so high to the heavens that air itself is fabled to be absent from their peaks, lies an elevated grassland surrounded by cliffs unclimbable, save for a few narrow stairs cut into the rock. It is an uncanny region filled with mysteries, about which it is perhaps better to not write with unguarded words. The land is known in the local tongue as Leng. Its most numerous inhabitants are herders of beasts that resemble shaggy goats. These animals supply all their need. Their meat is the main diet of the nomads. Their dense coats, the source of cloth for their garments and round tents. The nomads are short of stature but broad of body, with lungs adapted to thin air, and sallow of face, with slitted black eyes and bristling black hair. Seldom do they walk, but move from place to place, mounted on horses that are not as our own, but are so small that the feet of their riders brush the grass, with bushy manes that stand upright. Near the center of the plateau, upon a slight eminence of ground, stands a great monastery of black stones and red tile roofs that is the dwelling of a sect of monks, said to worship incomprehensible gods and practice abominations so unnatural and repellent that the inhabitants of the plateau prefer not to speak of them, and even avoid turning their eyes toward the place. The herders fear the monks, who never leave their monastery during the daylight hours and are seldom glimpsed by other men. They are the lords of Leng, and all tribes pay annual tribute to them. Yet so indifferent are they to the people and affairs of their realm, that their influence is seldom felt, unless at rare intervals, when an extraordinary event compels them to act in their own interests. It is whispered that they are not quite human. The true leaders of the people of Lang are the Shamans, who hold great power in their camps by virtue of the terror they inspire. They are known by the blue markings with which their faces are decorated when they reach the age of manhood, and by a small amulet of green jade that they wear about their necks on a thong. It has the shape of a winged beast resembling a great dog, its snout distorted in a snarl of murderous rage. The stone is both a symbol of their power and a sign of their bondage. For once put on, they may never remove it, and must wear it even after death, lest the harvesters of souls send collectors in the form of crows and rats and other carrion things to steal their bones and enslave their sleeping essence. Dogs, similar to those carved on the stones, haunt the outskirts of the camps, their drawn-out cries sounding across the plain like the lamentations of the damned. These beasts are far larger than our desert dogs, almost the size of a crouching man. They lack the wings, shown in the images of the amulets, but are in every other respect identical. Hunting in large packs, they take the weak herd animals for their food and, when they are able, the children and elderly of the nomads. No force of arms serves to keep them at bay. Only powerful necromancy employing the corpses of slain warriors who, when animated, become the night guardians of the camps. The winged hounds of the soul stones are jealous protectors and will smell out the footsteps of any fool who steals such an amulet from its shaman and exacts a terrible vengeance. So long as the amulets are worn, the shamans are invulnerable to the consequences of their actions, and may enact any outrage against men or gods with impunity. They fear nothing other than the monks of the monastery, to whom they accord a sullen deference. Alone among the people of Lang, they eat no flesh from the herd beasts, but only the flesh of human beings, which they boil in great copper kettles until it's tender, then salt and dry for provisions on their migrations. The common people of the plateau are willing to pay this price for the protection from the dogs and from other threats less physical provided by the shamans. If you should pass in soul flight through the portal of Lang, you will find your mind within the body of one of its inhabitants, the full power to control that creature as you see fit, and with understanding of its language and the requirements of its life. In this vessel you may wander, where you will, and learn all that is of interest concerning this place and its ancient history. For Lang is one of the oldest regions of our world, and has remained undisturbed by the cataclysms that at long intervals of time reshape the land and redefine the outline of the seas. It is a misfortune to enter the body of an infant, for the immaturity of the form limits the gathering of information. The body of a shaman, protected by the spirit of the winged hound, that is indented to his soul, cannot be entered, nor can the body of a monk be occupied, for those who dwell within the monastery are guarded by potent charms. A creature of the depths related an amusing tale concerning a traveller to Lang. The man was a wizard, who lived centuries prior to the present age. He passed through the portal and found himself within the form of an infant girl, just as the shaman and his apprentice were placing the child in a cauldron of boiling water. Powerless to resist, due to the smallness of his host body, he suffered all the torments of death. More than this, his consciousness remained locked in the flesh of the infant after it was cooked, and he was forced to endure the indignity of being cut apart and consumed piece by piece. Such are the hazards inherent in the practice of wizardry. In the mornings, after a rain, when the mist hangs close to the grasslands and the sun barely glows above the low lines of slate-coloured clouds that hug the horizon, the form of a great city with vast towers and oblong habitations of stone may be seen in mirage, for no matter how clear the alignments of the city, which at times is visible in great fineness of detail, it invariably wavers and vanishes when approached. The shamans tell that it is the city of the elder things that once rose where Lang now is, but over the passing of eons, moved with the movements of the earth itself to some distant place far to the south. It is their belief that the ground upon which we walk is not fixed, but floats upon the depths of the seas, and that the wind of ages blow the land across the sea, so that our world is forever rearranged, and what was north becomes south, and what was east becomes west. The common people of Lang worship the Shamans. The Shamans worship Yog-Sothoth, the master of the portals, who is at oneness with all time and space, and who manifests as a conflux of the spheres of the heavens, glowing with all colours simultaneously. Learn wisdom and worship Yog-Sothoth if you would transcend the limits of distance and the barrier of time, and would be a far traveller in a myriad of worlds. Worship him if you would defy death itself and live beyond your allotted years. For Yog-Sothoth holds the keys to all the gates, even the gate of death. The Shamans adore him with the following prayer that can only be imperfectly rendered into our tongue. Ayikta! Something like that. Heed my cry, Yog-Sothoth. By your secret name I adore thee. By your true name I offer obeisance in return for your sufferance, the utterance of which is death. On my knees I beg the gift of slavery in your service, O herder of ages. Accept my offering of blood, flesh, and bone, and torment of this soul that I have bound for your pleasure. Set free the gates, Lord of transitions, that my voice may spread the glory of your greatness, borne upon the wings of Katai, that guards the descent of my fathers. I acknowledge your supremacy, and bear witness of your greatness in the hall of reckoning beyond the stars. Ayi Katai, Yog-Sothoth, Ayi Katai. Alright, so that was a bit weird, right? That's enough of that. Alright, and so, like, to sort of get this all as potent as possible, I'm gonna get the old KJV out. Best book of it, you know. Well, the second best probably. Like, Revelation's a bit scary for me, you know. I'm sort of more of a builder, you know. Not so much a sort of like rebuilder, I guess, you know. Anyway, so chapter 9 of Genesis goes a bit like this. And God blessed Noah and his sons, and said to them, Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. Everything that liveth shall be meat for you. Even as the green herb have I given you all things. But flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. And surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast will I require it, and at the hand of man. At the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. Whoso sheddeth man's blood by man, shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God made he man. And you, be ye fruitful and multiply. Bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply therein. And God spake unto Noah, and to his sons, with him, saying, And I, behold, I establish my covenant with you, and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, of the cattle, and of every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark to every beast of the earth. And I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you, and every living creature that is with you, for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for the token of the covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass, when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, and I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, This is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem, and Ham, and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. These are the 3 sons of Noah, and of them the whole earth overspread. And Noah began to be an husbandman, and planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine, and was drunken, and he was uncovered with his tent. But Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his 2 brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment, and laid it upon both their shoulders, and went backward, covered their nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah woke from his wine, and knew what his youngest son had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. And God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years, and all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. Alright, so, you know, that's sort of like, that's the story of Noah after the flood. Alright. So how does any of that relate to any of the rest of it, okay? I mean, if we're gonna go for like a biblical perspective, like the sort of like fundamentalist Christian perspective of creation, right? It could be said that plateau of Lang, even though like it's a cursed book that, you know, is all lies, that's more likely, like that would be like the spot. Those would be like the sort of like original culture spawned by like, you know, Noah and Ham and Shem and Japheth, right? Where are we getting here? Fuck. The nakedness would be like, you know, being aware of the god Yog-Sothoth, right? It's like, that's what that is. And so, like, the amulets worn by, like, the fucking monks and the shamans, that sort of is the covering of that nakedness. It's like the covering of the sort of, just that, like, ultimate power corrupts ultimately sort of situation that you're gonna just find yourself in, you know? And so, like, yeah. And, you know, the successive sort of, like, hierarchy in that, you know, Lang civilization is, like, you know, that what talks about in that fucking chapter about how, like, you know, God divides up the sort of, like, servantry of, like, you know, the descendants of Noah's sons, you know, and the, like, the places they go and inhabit. So, like, the plateau of Lang is obviously in, like, I mean, realistically is in the Himalayas, right? It's probably like fucking Bhutan or some shit. But, like, set 1400 years ago, you know? It's probably changed a lot since then, you know? Maybe, like, you know, fucking Buddhists were like, hey, we're nicer monks, you know? At some point. And then how does that relate to Aurelius? So Aurelius is, like, fucking much more fucking, what, like, east or west of, like, fucking the Himalayas, right? Like, that motherfucker never touched that shit. Whoa. Oh. That's a bit of a tricky place to be. Try and continue that situation. Alright, so Oops. That's better. Alright, so like I said, that's a pretty complex sort of stuff, really. It's sort of like, it's pretty vague, you know. It's probably a good thing that he was like a Stoic philosopher and an emperor, but he was also like the emperor of Rome at a time when it was like, you know, he was like the last good one, you know, because I guess he lived in like 50 BC or some shit. Like his sort of thing was sort of like, you know, late 1st century. And so, if he was dumb enough not to see it coming, well, you can see it coming. Like, I guess a guy like that, if he was wise at all, was like pretty resigned to failure, you know. That's a good thing about Stoicism, is it's like, it will help you with failure, you know, because shit is about to hit the fucking fan for, like, you know, the Roman Empire at that point. I guess there's a few good years left, possibly as a result of Aurelius, because he's like such a fucking up there sort of dude. But then again, like, I mean, maybe like Stoicism is really just like kind of like, it's sort of like that sort of it's like, yeah, I guess the Roman Stoics are a bit more resigned to failure, I guess. And I think, but like also in that he refers to the idea that like there's sort of this like divine natural providence, you know, there's like one thing leads to another, and if you can understand the sort of like fucking that first cause or the causes of things, you know, then you can kind of hopefully sort shit out, you know. Thing is, like, this is a pretty fucking brutal time in human history, and so like, yeah, I don't really know. Anyway, that's my fucking. But wait, there's more. I gotta read something, the ninth part of Thus Spoke Zarathustra. There's all sorts of numbers for stuff in this. I'm up to the 7 seals, going past just gets to 7. We'll just read the 7th seal, alright? If ever I spread out a still sky above myself and flew with my own wings into my own sky, if, playing, I have swum into deep light distances and bird wisdom came to my freedom. But thus speaks bird wisdom. Behold, there is no above, no below. Fling yourself about, out, back, weightless bird, sing, speak, no more. Are not all words made for the heavy? Do not all words lie to the light? Sing, speak no more. Oh, how should I not lust for eternity, for the wedding ring of rings, the ring of recurrence? Never yet did I find the woman by whom I wanted children, unless it be this woman, whom I love, for I love you, O eternity. 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 That's my Halo slipping down. Have a good one, motherfuckers.